Good evening and welcome to the Raben Report. I'm your host, Elliot Raben, so get ready to get triggered. Hello and welcome to the Raben Report's Summer Special. I'm your host, Elliot Raben, as you might have heard in our intro, and with me, only once this summer, is my expert panel, Marshall, Adam, and Daniel. How are you guys?
We're doing
good.
Doing
very, very well.
Good to be back.
Yeah,
really
I feel
good to
you.
be back.
Yeah. So that's awesome to hear. Hopefully the audio is working on the feed. Yep. So tonight, I should say, we're doing a live summer special episode of the Raben Report. All four of us have been eager to get back into the studio and discuss everything that's happened over the past few months. And we are live on Facebook, which is the only place you can tune in to us today. So make sure to be commenting because we will be reading them live on air. Marshall will be in charge of that. He'll just jump in, read your comments, and you'll be on air. So before we start the actual broadcast, I want to give a very special thank you to four very special people. Sean Haswell, Lori Beckstead, Scott O'Sullivan, and Kevin Kordick. Without these four Ryerson faculty members, this show would not have been possible at all, honestly. So thank you to you guys. Now, today's show, actually, I should mention, speaking of Ryerson faculty, The opinions expressed on this show are not those of Ryerson or Ryerson faculty and are only those of the individual commentators. Now, today's show will be a bit different in terms of format. Usually, we'd have a 5-minute recap of the week followed by our main story. This episode, we'll be doing a somewhat lightning round on several topics. Our viewers in our Facebook poll selected all 3 topics last week for today's show. And for those whose topics were not selected, don't worry, because we'll be doing full episodes on those topics. Now, because as hard as it is to believe that we have lives outside of the show, we're going to start with our summers, how all 4 of us have spent our summers. So, Marshall, let's start with you. How did you spend your summer?
So I've been working an internship. I'm at Rebel Media, the notorious, shall we say, depending on where you're coming from,
fake news
media company, and it's been fantastic. I'm loving the job. I'm loving the segue I'm getting into the political media industry, and my coworkers are absolutely fantastic. It's been a pleasure to work there. Otherwise, I mean, I'm working full time. It's taken up a lot of my time, but I've been spending some time hanging out with friends, seeing family, and I went on vacation just the other week, and that was a fantastic time. Went down to the States, Washington, D.C., North Carolina, Virginia, and it was a great time. It's been a great summer so far.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Did you you enjoyed North Carolina a lot?
Yeah, it was a great time.
Did you see Trump in D.C.?
Unfortunately not. That would have made my trip, but just missed him.
Okay. Well, Adam, let's move on to you. How did you spend your summer?
It's been pretty good. I was working at a job. I've had the privilege of nepotism, and I've been working at a law firm that my mom's got me connections with for the last 4 years or so, but this summer I just felt like it wasn't right for me, and I ended up quitting before my summer, I guess, term was supposed to finish. I still love it. I love the people there, all good people. It was nothing to do with them. It was more me. Other than that, I took a summer course on pre-colonial African history, which was really eye-opening and really interesting. My dad had a kid with his wife, so now I have a baby sister, which is weird for me because she is 20 years younger than me. And other than that, I've been sleeping a lot, and yeah, not much else.
Well, congrats on the baby sister.
Thank you.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you.
Maybe she'll be on the show someday.
She'll be a guest at some point.
And now, Daniel, how did you spend your summer?
Pretty good actually. After school ended and stuff, working at some other job, like it was alright. It was okay. Just have something to pay the bills, you know. Just exciting stuff and that relaxing more than anything. Been working at the same job I've been doing for a while, most of the summer, like stuff like that. I won't get too deep into it, but like basically I'll just say like working with kids and stuff like that and stuff like that. It's pretty good though. I like it. It's very rewarding and stuff like that in terms of like just waking up every day and like knowing that like I'm making a kid's day or something like that by playing some fun games with them or something like that. It's something I've been doing since I was like, was it 15, 16 maybe? And they just, my employers, they really saw that I was able to do that. And it's been a pretty good ride. Hopefully, like, I don't know, it's very like eye-opening and seeing stuff like that. Maybe like in terms of maybe if I actually want to get into teaching or something like that. I don't know if I actually want to do that, but like
teaching politics maybe.
No, I'm saying like just in general. But like people like that do that, they usually like to like branch into teaching and stuff like that. So it's very eye opening. See if I actually do want to like have a life like working with kids and stuff like that. But I don't know. Yeah, so, and then just for something else, going to Vel like for the weekend, and that's gonna be a very fun experience to say the least. Yeah, that's good. And what about you?
Me?
How have you been doing?
Well, I currently work 3 jobs, and
Soviet Russia would be very proud of you.
Yeah. It's kind of tough, but you know what? I'm handling it. Probably the best part of my summer was just preparing for this show. 3 weeks in advance, I spent 7 hours in this room today before the show, so I'm a little crazy, but I'm sure you guys and the viewers all know that. Other than that, just kind of reminiscing. About a year ago, I saw Celine Dion live in Montreal.
Wow.
So
really nice.
Yeah.
I'm really happy for the two of you. Happy anniversary.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It really means a lot.
Diehard Celine Dion fan.
Yeah. And if you didn't know that, just stop watching. But anyway, that's basically it. And now we're doing our summer special, and I'm excited. So let's get to the actual part of it. You know what I mean? Okay.
Let's do it.
By all means.
So now that we've gotten our summers out of the way, let's talk about how the rest of the world celebrated their summer. And wasn't very joyous occasion, now was it?
It never is joyous when you watch the news.
Really?
Yeah. So our first subject, we're going to start right here at home. We're going to start with the case of Omar Khadr. So what happened? Daniel, why don't you explain to us, give us some context on the Omar Khadr case.
I would just like to use like I wouldn't say like maybe just a credible source. Also for any university students watching, something that I would not necessarily use as an actual full-on source, but something as a background way to get some good information. Canadian Encyclopedia has some decent information, to be honest.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily like ridiculously partisan to the left or to the right, in my opinion. So an example, Omar Khadr is a Toronto-born Canadian captured by American soldiers after a firefight in Afghanistan in 2002 when he was 15 years old. The only minor since the Second World War to be convicted of purported war crimes, Khadr was imprisoned in Guantanamo Bay and Canada for almost 13 years. In 2010, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that Khadr's detainment violated the principles of fundamental justice and the most basic Canadian standards about the treatment of youth suspects/criminals. I added that one there. Despite repeated attempts by the Canadian government to keep him in prison, Khadr was released on bail in May 2015. Now here's the kicker. After 2 years, the Canadian government decided to give him a $10.5 million payout because the Canadian government violated his constitutional rights. And that is why this issue is so controversial, because people are like, maybe he does deserve the money, maybe he doesn't. Is he a war criminal? He is, but like, is he like, what does he do? Like, what's the problem here? And there you go.
So then the question is, should he have been paid? And if yes, should he have been paid that much? Because really, even if it was a a form of reconciliation, $10.5 million to a terrorist, to a convicted terrorist, right?
Here's my thing right now. That $10.5 million, where's that money coming from? That's taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
That's the problem right there. That's taxpayers' money.
And also, it wasn't made public. Trudeau, from the reports that I've read, did it all under hush under the table,
very clandestine.
and it was explained through the media.
Mm-hmm.
The media broke the story. But yeah, should he have been paid? And if yes, that much?
Okay, so what I understand about the Khadr case was he was a minor at the time of his conviction, yeah?
Right.
I believe so. And
He was 15.
yeah, conflicting reports was that he was sort of brainwashed by his father, who brought him to Afghanistan, from what I've also read. Now, I may sound like I'm crying a few liberal tears, and that's what I tend to do at times. But for me, no matter no matter what you've done, criminal or non-criminal, Canadian born, you have constitutional rights. And those are not taken away from you or sort of dangled over your head to, uphold the social contract or maintain
It's for the idea
some
that
sort of,
the idea is that the Constitution is not basically, but is absolute. And
yeah,
stuff like
it's
that.
absolute, and
And we
that's
can't. The only way we would change that is by maybe some sort of referendum or some sort of crazy
what
something
does
brought
it take?
through
It takes 3 big provinces, and there's a whole reformation.
It's a ridiculous
Yeah.
process, but it's something like that. It would. It
you
would
need- you
be
need
a
a majority.
monumental point in
Yeah.
Canadian history
Yeah.
to actually change the Constitution.
Exactly.
You know.
And for me to see a minor may or may have not been brainwashed by his dad, done something that he has expressed remorse for on many occasions, and to sort of sit, he lost his life in Guantanamo Bay. He's now a 30-year-old man, or 30-something-year-old man. I don't think he should have been paid that much, per se, but the legal fees that were amounting because the case was being dragged on for so long would have surpassed the settlement fund. I think, what did they say? It would have been
more.
It would have been
like
more to
something like-
keep the case going than to settle. And as far as a legal aspect goes, settling is always the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And for me, I think he shouldn't have been as high, but I think it was right to settle.
Yeah.
So for me, when it comes down to it, there's procedures that have to be followed, and what happened to Khadr is there was a miscarriage of justice. Did he murder someone? That is certainly how it looks. He did confess to it, but in the process of seeing to the retribution for the murder, justice was miscarried. And when justice is miscarried, there needs to be some sort of retribution for it. Or else, what is the incentive not to miscarry justice for the government? If people are not, compensated when justice is miscarried, what is stopping the government from miscarrying justice?
Exactly.
So for me, the importance of the psychology of language when it comes to things like this is very important. I see the word deserve thrown around a lot. People saying that Khadr definitely deserved this. People saying that Khadr definitely didn't deserve this. I see a lot of silliness from the right in saying no way he should have gotten anything. He should be just in prison for life or put to death or what have you for killing Colonel Spear. And the way I look at it, he needed to get some sort of compensation. That's how it is. His rights were violated. But does he deserve that compensation? Justice was carried out appropriately, but does he deserve it? No. What he deserves, as far as I'm concerned, is to rot in hell. But
Hot take.
when something like that happens, when justice is miscarried in that kind of fashion, there needs to be some sort of compensation. You can't just apply the law where you feel it is appropriate to. There is something called rule of law. Everybody is subject to the same laws. And sometimes it leads to things like this, where somebody who's maybe a terrible person gets a serious amount of money. But that's just what happens when you have rule of law. That's the price of democracy.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, maybe your issues with democracy.
Yeah. So that totally it makes sense, and so now that we, our audience and all of us understand that he did, it was the best decision to give him the money. The way it was done, as I mentioned, was very hush-hush, and it was only revealed through the media. Trudeau never discussed it with the other parties. How has this affected Trudeau's approval rating?
From what I understand, they did a IPOS Read poll or one of those, and the majority of Canadians, vast majority of Canadians, disapprove with the settlement to Khadr. And I always believed that I always believed in nonpartisanship in the legislature when it comes to stuff like that. I always believed that our friends on the NDP aisle, the conservative aisle, the green aisle, they have good input. They have capability to, shed new light onto cases. That's why we have a multi-party system, because we need people with different views to, represent this country. And I think that should it have been discussed with Scheer and Mulcair and May and I don't know the leader of the Québécois right now.
Is it not Gilles Duceppe?
Is it still Gilles Duceppe? I thought he lost in his own riding.
Didn't he?
Yeah.
He's gone. He was gone a long time ago.
And
I
didn't
think.
Pauline Marois?
She was out because she called for the election and lost.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know his name right now.
I mean, maybe unfortunately nobody really cares that much about the Bloc Québécois to report
People's
on.
Republic of Quebec.
Now we've got our friend James essentially agreeing with the payout, or he wouldn't call it a payout. He's saying it's an out of court settlement, not a payout. He was suing for $30 million and he would have won. And that's certainly valid. I mean, I think that it's pretty likely he would have won. Would I like to have seen it go to court? Yeah. Because maybe something would have come up that proved that his rights were not violated. I'm not saying that his rights weren't violated. I don't know. I wasn't there. But I would have liked to see it go to court for that reason.
Yeah.
Well, in my eyes, the whole reason why they settled to begin with is because they had enough evidence against them that
Totally
it
fair.
wouldn't be right for them to go to court.
Totally
Yeah.
fair.
But yeah, as I was to continue off what I was saying, it's it could have been done differently.
Yeah.
It's always about execution.
Yeah.
Good that he settled. Good the case didn't drag on. Good less taxpayer money was being spent on this. But if you preach equality and transparency and accountability, it comes in all walks of being the prime minister. And Trudeau's not stupid, or I don't think he is, and he knows that this would have tanked his approval rating, or would have caused a lot of even further. It would have caused a lot of ruckus in the House. So I'm pretty sure that's why he didn't consult the rest of the legislature.
Yeah, I just pulled up 3 different types of approval ratings from 2016 to 2017, and from 3 different sources: Main Street Research, Angus Reid Institute, and Forum Research. Those are 3 different think tanks, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So the average approval would went to around 9.96%, I guess. So that's a pretty huge chunk. If
Like
you
he
look at
dropped by 9.96?
9.9 points. Yeah.
Oh, I thought his approval rating was 10%. I was like,
That'd really probably be the worst in the world.
yeah.
It was from 64 down to 54, 63 to 54, 57 to 48. From
Wow.
those 3 different.
Wow, he's
from-
below 50 already.
That's pretty.
That's
pretty
bad.
What
for
are
a
Trump's approval ratings?
He's at
Oh,
36,
yeah.
32.
Oh, well, still better.
No, but still, Trudeau's in his second year
Yeah,
of,
but Trump's
his
just in his
first
infancy
term.
of his
Yeah.
term.
Yeah.
That's
Like, wow.
yeah.
I did not think they were that
And
bad.
then Andrew Scheer, if anyone doesn't know, is the leader of the Conservative
the
Party.
stock photo.
Half of Canadians apparently do not have an opinion of him and don't know who he
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
You know what? I think he's working on it, though. I think he's
for
really
sure.
trying hard.
Well, he has a couple years to build up his credibility for the next term, so
Yeah.
that's good.
I mean, really, can you imagine? I don't know. I was very young at the time, but before the first time Stephen Harper won,
Yeah.
I'm sure that,
No one knew him.
3 years before, 2 years before the election, did people really care about him? Like the
Yeah.
general Canadian populace, did they really care about him?
But
Probably
Stephen
not.
Harper was very involved.
Well, every conservative
Yeah.
knew his name,
Mhm.
just as every conservative knows Andrew Scheer's name. But every
Yeah.
conservative knew his name for a long time.
Yeah.
But did the general Canadian
No.
populace? I have no idea, but I'm gonna wager probably not.
No, Stephen Harper, from what I remember or vaguely reading about, he was the underdog in the in the primary.
Against against Tony Clement, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that this is really going to prevent any people from crossing the floor isn't the right term, but any more right-leaning people from voting Liberal in the next election. I think that it's not going to prevent every single right-leaning person from switching to Liberal, but I think it's going to have a huge effect on that. I don't really think it's going to take too many Liberals out of the party.
Right.
I haven't seen too many Liberals who are too critical of this, and I really don't think
Critical
that
of Trudeau or the
the
Omar Khadr?
Omar Khadr
Yeah.
issue. And I really don't think that the Conservatives handled it the right way. They shouldn't have made an issue of it the way they did. Maybe make an issue of it in a better way, in a more thoughtful way, but making an issue of the payout or settlement rather in general was a poor decision and just made them look like...
It's bait.
It is.
It's bait.
It made them look like... Now, I wish I had a term for this, but people who freak out over issues that they shouldn't be freaking out over.
Elliot Raben.
Sure.
Melodramatic.
Sure, melodramatic, sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's an issue. It's something worth talking about, but the way they talked about it was certainly not ideal.
It was very childish, and I don't mean to put down any conservatives or whatever, but it was very childish seeing, like, how can, Justin Trudeau give this terrorist so much money? It's less about that and more about, how justice was miscarried and how things were carried out.
I think that the reason that they reacted like this, and I don't agree with the way they reacted, but because they didn't have all the facts, I guess, and they didn't have the reasoning for why the payout had happened, like we just discussed. It was in order to avoid a bigger payout through the lawsuit. My real concern, which I think is valid that the Conservatives pointed out, the only thing that I think is valid is that Trudeau didn't even consult with the widow's wife.
Yeah.
Like, that's, your husband was killed by a terrorist, that terrorist gets money, and you find out through who? The other party, the news, like, everybody was unprofessional in this whole situation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And, Trudeau has a history of doing that, where he just sort of hides when things don't go his way. Like when the 2 Canadians were killed in the Philippines,
Right.
he called the family like 3 or 4 days later, and they just hung up on him.
On the Prime Minister?
On the Prime Minister, because he was giving them nothing except like, sorry about that. And it wasn't right of Justin Trudeau. Now, I don't agree with how Justin Trudeau handled it either, because when he was approached at the Stampede about the case, he sort of looked at the reporters and was like, what's your problem? He was like, as usual, like, the case was going to go out further, and and it was, and he was like, he looked at the camera, sort of like, hop off.
He's like, why would you ask me?
Why would you ask me such a thing? How dare you?
I'll pull something up right now, and it's saying that maybe I don't know how long in terms of the legal battle, maybe a couple years, something like that. But think about it. So it's $10.5 million Canadian.
Yep.
So if this battle would have kept going, would have been, they say, estimates ranging from 30 to 40 million.
Yeah, that's what I read. And I didn't want to talk out of my ass and say it live.
People would have been, if let's say we weren't talking about this now and we talk about it 2 years later, people were just talking about 2 years later, $40 million?
I know.
People
Can you imagine?
would have
and close to the election?
Exactly. Okay, there we go. I think it's actually a smart move for the Liberals to settle this case right now, because if they didn't settle it then, that would have been a huge talking point for the Conservatives and for the NDP to just destroy them, and Liberals would have barely 100 seats in the House.
Credibility is gone completely.
Now, you would lose faith in the Liberals for that completely.
As I watch the live feed and look for comments, I have noticed something which... this is maybe a more frivolous topic, but I have a mustache right now, and I'm just noticing how evident it is in the video. And I'd like to point out that I don't actually think it looks good. I don't have this because I think it looks good. I thought it was going to look good. I thought I was going to look like Errol Flynn, who is a actor from the big American actor in the 40s and 50s. But I think I look actually more like Omar Sharif's character in Dr. Zhivago. I don't know if you ever watched Dr. Zhivago, but
how do you spell that?
It's Zhavago, I believe. And Omar Sharif is Omar.
Who's the guy you want to look like?
Errol Flynn. ERROLFLYNN.
This guy?
Yeah, I feel like that's the kind of vibe I'm giving off right now. Are we able to point the camera at that picture?
Point it to the camera. Which camera?
One?
That one, yours.
Mine?
Yeah. That one, that one.
Oh, this one. Okay. Anyone see that?
Are we
that
able
just
to
looks
see
like that looks like a mix of Marshall and Borat, to be honest.
Yeah, okay. And I suppose Borat's another fair comparison. So I just wanted that's kind of a disclaimer. I don't actually think this looks good, and I'm probably going to shave it. No, I'm definitely going to shave it. I was going for an Errol Flynn thing.
Well, Adam saw me the other day. We saw each other the other day.
Yeah.
And you saw me with my facial hair.
Yeah,
right?
it wasn't bad.
I had a full on I had a full on mustache like this, right? And then a nice little chin beard, and I had the little spot right there, right?
Soul patch.
Yeah, and then I just shaved down everything else, right? And then people at work or something like that, someone's like, hey, you look like Johnny Depp. And I'm like, or is it, I'm like, are you trying to be mean about it? Or is I'm like, no, it's really nice. I'm
Mean
like,
about
hey.
calling you Johnny Depp.
No,
Yeah,
what?
Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp's a good
bizarre.
looking
Or,
guy.
or like everyone's like, you look different. I'm like, or
Yeah.
whenever I do my hair, like I do put it up, someone always asks me, like, did you get a haircut? And I'm like, no, I just did my
Yeah.
hair.
And
Yeah.
Syed Humza commented, nice stash, and I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. That
I actually think
makes
it
me
looks
feel
pretty
very-
good.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Maybe I'll hold on to it for a while. I'm going to do an
Yeah.
evaluation tonight when I get home.
Well, see,
and
that's
we'll
the thing. So, like, when I had the full on thing, like 1, 2, and 3, and then after I shaved it up, like as you can see now, I'm like kind of got some scruff, but
Yeah.
not too
Yeah.
much right now. Everyone's like, "Whoa, you look so different." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what happens to
Yeah.
people when they take off their facial hair. Like, it's a pretty drastic change. Like,
The
like,
first
if
time-
Adam was full
yeah.
clean shaved, like it would be a whole
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah,
No, like
I've
two
been
different
clean
people.
shaven a few times. I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like
It makes me
either.
feel naked.
But
Right.
your grandmother
Thank
doesn't
you.
like your beard. Is that
My
correct?
grandmother
yes,
hates my beard.
exactly.
Really?
Same
And
thing.
My
My
grandmother
grandma
hates my beard.
She
What did
always
she call you?
She called me Daesh, which is
Yes,
ISIS in Arabic.
yes.
she
Yeah, I'm
She-
serious.
Yeah, my grandma tells me I look like either homeless person, right?
Yeah.
And I get it.
Yeah.
But
Does she tell
I
you that
just-
in Russian?
Oh, of course.
What is homeless person in Russian?
Бездомный or something like that.
Бездомный.
I don't know. My parents are probably gonna message me right now saying like you're insulting Russian language. But new poll for the Raben Report. How does Marshall's mustache look?
Okay. Keep her shave.
So last question regarding Omar Khadr. How has I know we shifted away from the mustache. It was
It's
a great
alright, it's
convo,
alright.
but I didn't have a key for Marshall's mustache.
It's
but
okay.
anyway, how has Trudeau's decision affected his relationship with Donald Trump? Because there was some issues with NAFTA. The Conservatives were, concerned about it. I know that they got Ronna Ambrose, who was the former leader, to help with negotiations. But did it make a difference? And how, if it did?
I think this should be posted on the Raben Report page. There was a reporter, I believe, working for the Star or something that did a whole biopic on how Canada is handling America with the Trump administration. And TLDR, basically, they're going around him. They're communicating with local governments, state governments, senators, governors, mayors, village, township councilors. Like, they're sort of going around him.
TLDR means too long, didn't read.
Sorry about that.
We should have like an MTV pop-up video thing.
Too long.
What's
yeah.
her name? The black girl. What's her name?
Oh, Francesca Ramsey.
Francesca Ramsey. There we go.
Oh man.
And
Hey guys, today we're gonna learn about white privilege.
so it was a whole thing about how, and that's how Canada's handling Trump. I don't think Trump even knows who Omar Khadr is, to be honest with you. I don't think this has anything to do with Trump. But we'll talk about that
People
later
would
on
say
in the
that
show.
just because he's like Arabic or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
they're making a connection when there isn't one there.
Yeah.
If anybody connects this to Trump, oh yeah, Trump wouldn't do something like this. He obviously wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
He would drag this out until its dying day in court,
big time.
which is the absolute wrong
I'm
thing.
going to use the Trump Industries resources to
Yeah,
fight this legal
That's
battle.
basically what he's going to do. We care about the family. We're going to
Yeah.
bring the family on, the greatest family I've ever met.
Now, one thing I forgot to mention is I didn't like Andrew Scheer's overall response to it in terms of the grand scheme of things. However, one thing Andrew Scheer said that I thought was absolutely fantastic was he said,
Like criticizing the payout?
yeah, he said, if Omar Khadr is actually sorry and actually remorseful over what he did, he would give every cent to Tabitha Speer.
Yeah.
And I
That's
completely
true.
agree.
Yeah.
I have seen nothing to show that Omar Khadr is sorry for what he did. And I really think that he does not, again, deserve the money, even if it was right and just that he got the money.
Yeah.
And I think maybe don't even give every cent to Tabitha Speer, but give some of it.
Yeah, I would say like at least half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, totally. And like, what better way to say I am remorseful for this? Now I can't remember who interviewed him
We'll just
a
ball
while
out in
back,
Vegas
asking
together.
if he was remorseful.
I think it was CBC or something.
It was CBC.
Yeah.
Asking if he was remorseful, and it was the most unconvincing thing. And
Yeah.
that's not even my bias. That's like, because this is an issue where I like to think I'm not very biased. He did not seem remorseful whatsoever. So unconvincing, such a pathetic attempt, and it's sad to see him being lauded as some sort of Was he a victim? Yes, but some sort of just like guy who did
Yeah,
nothing. Some innocent guy. No, he's not innocent.
Yeah.
For Christ's
No, I
sake.
think that a lot of the haze that has been created due to the emphasis on the miscarriage of justice has created the sort of forgetfulness or amnesia that he did kill someone.
Mhm.
But see, that's the thing, though. Like,
Yeah.
I think I was reading some other article where they were pulling up, like, saying that he retracted his guilty plea or something like that.
Really?
Something like that. Yeah, I saw something like that right now. Or like specifically like that. Or I think off the air, like Ellie and I were discussing that about like the case just like briefly,
Mhm.
and something about like the actual grenade and stuff like that, like that he
Yeah.
used.
Yeah.
People, like he's saying that like,
Yeah,
he's
he-
not sure that the grenade actually killed. What's his name again?
Spear.
Christopher
Spear.
Spear, I believe it was.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Shear, but that's not.
Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Spear.
Christopher Spear. Perfect.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
go on.
So I read the article and you looked at the same one. It basically said that he admitted to throwing the grenade, but he didn't specify. He said that he wasn't sure that it was his grenade that killed Spear, which is kind of like we know that's what happened, and he was just trying to cover himself. So
And
I totally agree. Like the whole situation, he wasn't remorseful at all.
Mhm.
I agree with
I
Marshall.
also read somewhere that he wasn't even sure that there were people in the room. They
really?
weren't even sure when he threw the
Oh,
grenade. He
okay.
wasn't sure that Spear's convoy was in the place that he was throwing the grenade. But why else would you throw the grenade?
Yeah,
didn't
exactly.
think there
That's
were
a great
people.
point.
Yeah.
So there, and also it's been what 15 years since it happened.
Yeah.
16,
Yeah,
17 years.
15 years.
That's happened
So
in 2002.
it's
yeah.
hard to remember
in
the
Afghanistan.
details
fair.
of a
Yeah.
case.
It's fair.
And I'm not defending him in any way, but even people that survived the Holocaust, they can't even recall what happened to them. Yeah, but
Yeah. So we do have to move on to our next topic,
Bum,
which
bum, bum.
is the Russian collusion.
Ooh.
So let's put the pedal on the gas, drive over to Russia. This next segment will be done. This next segment will be done entirely in Russian, so I hope you guys practice. Значит, мы будем говорить про Россию. No, I'm kidding.
Please.
Привет.
We'll just put English subtitles. It's fine. Marshall, you're on.
Or we'll put Russian subtitles. For our Russian
Yeah.
viewers.
Нет.
Yeah. So again, the first question: what happened?
Well, like
Adam.
the book of like Hillary Clinton's book. What happened? Or what, is that the name of the book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happened?
What
What
a
happened?
stupid damn name
terrible
for the
name.
book. Oh my god.
What happened? Read
You were
the-
the worst candidate in history. Like, oh my, like Barry Goldwater was a better candidate. And
Oh, I
Barry
know.
Barry Goldwater implied bombing the Vietnamese, like, or nuking
Yeah.
the Vietnamese, like.
You're better
Barry Goldwater.
than Walter Mondale. Like
Yeah.
worse than Walter Mondale.
Oh my god, what a bad candidate. Hillary
Okay,
Clinton
so
was.
to sum up the Russian collusion, to quote Her Holiness Kellyanne Conway, collusion, illusion, which leads to delusion, and is the conclusion. Thank you.
I used to like her so much too.
Hold on, there you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So
Oh, that was so. Just that video of her on TV with the papers.
yeah,
was just so funny.
that's what I'm quoting for those who don't know.
And
She
it's
was
funny
on
because when
yeah.
I first heard about that, I assumed it was a joke. I assumed it was satire from The Onion or something.
Yeah, no.
I couldn't believe
No.
she actually said that.
Yeah.
For Christ's sake.
She, for those who are unfamiliar, it was on USA Today. She had two pieces of paper, conclusion, collusion, delusion, illusion, and she was sort of cross-referencing them and whatever. And
Like people that use like a blackboard and they're like
Yeah.
tracing like the chalk.
that's
to, like,
that's
go all the
exactly
way,
what she
yeah.
was doing.
Like, what do they call that section on tests we had in grade 9?
Matching?
Matching. Yeah, that's
the
what she was
matching
doing.
Why
portion
can't
of
we
the
have
test where you
that
draw
in
lines.
I
university?
actually had that on the
I had it
test
only
first
a couple
year.
of times for university.
Yeah.
Oh, I miss those.
Yeah, I think it was like POG. What was it?
I had it in one of my history
It was
classes.
that class where we talk about all the philosophers, Western
Oh,
political
Western
thought.
political thought, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of
It's like,
course.
what did
Yeah.
Plato say?
You're
Plato
right.
said, yeah.
You're absolutely right. On the
Yeah,
final
we did
exam.
that,
Yeah.
It was good.
I did
Terrible
not take
class,
that
but still
course.
good.
Yeah, neither did I.
So, where do I even start with the whole Russian collusion case? So far, in the Trump administration, Trump has fired James Comey, the director of the FBI, Michael Flynn, who was the somebody
What was
wanted
he again?
somebody want to fill in the gaps for me here? Michael Flynn was.
He was a general, wasn't he?
He was the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah.
was he- no.
He was not.
I'm gonna Google
Michael
that.
Flynn was a general.
So Daniel's in charge of Googling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Michael Thomas Flynn is a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General who served in the Army for 33 years until 2014.
He was the national security advisor. wasn't
Yeah,
he?
national
National
security
advisor. Yeah.
So he was caught meeting with the Russian diplomats during the campaign. He was fired. Now there's a whole issue with Donald Trump Jr. meeting with Russian officials to get dirt on Hillary Clinton. Jeff Sessions recused himself from the Russian election, leading me to believe, and many other people to believe, that he has vested interest in the Russian scandal. Donald Trump has held meetings with Russian officials in closed doors without the press. There's a immense lack of transparency
Yeah.
in the U.S.'s relationship with Russia. And, whenever I think about this, I sort of look in shame at myself when I watched the Obama and Mitt Romney debate, when Mitt Romney was talking about the U.S.'s conflict with Russia, and Obama was like the 1980s called, they want their geopolitical threat back. And, now present day, we're seeing this whole threat, or for some non-threat, from Russia. And for me, because of this lack of transparency, and so many people don't know truly Russia's influence in the American election, it has led to a discourse that it's just fact-checking fails. It has led to this sort of discussion as to, did Russia hack the election? And it sort of brings back this conversation as to what was Russia's involvement, and it's lies. It's all lies, and it's all, it's a distraction for so many bigger issues. It is clickbait. It is, feed time for news, and it's, pardon my French, but it's just one big shit show.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's so much that, do we know this happened? Do we not know this happened? Did this really happen? Did it not happen? How did it happen? One news source reports one way, one news source reports the other way. They collide. You're fake news. They're not fake news. And it's just one really big headache. Mm-hmm. And for me, maybe I'm ignorant. You ignorant. I'm ignorant. Maybe that's how I am as a person, but the election is over.
Please don't appropriate African American vernacular.
I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I am ignorant, as a white person would say. But for me, the election is over. Donald Trump is the president. If you were to go back on it now, they tried so many times. They were like, tell your electoral college member to vote against Trump, to, impeach him, send the articles of impeachment to the Senate. The election is over. Whether or not Russia was involved, it doesn't matter.
It's funny when people talk about that kind of stuff. They're like, "Oh, the electoral college is the worst thing on the planet." And I'm like, "Do you even know how it works?
Yeah.
Do you
even
actually
know how it
works?
works? And did you care when Obama
Exactly.
What happens after you vote? Like, what is it? Like, do you even know what's going to happen?
Yeah.
I think the Electoral College in the United States is very fair because it prevents New York and Los Angeles
to have all the power,
and,
right?
and
Yeah.
Chicago, I suppose, from carrying the entire election, and it makes it fair, or as fair as can be. Maybe it's never fair.
I
truly,
wish
but it's
wish
fair as can
maybe
be.
for the Electoral College that there weren't so many like important.
Steps?
No, not steps. Like that's fine. Like we can go through red tape as much as possible. I'm saying more like how there's like. I wish like the power switched between certain states and stuff like that. Like so there wasn't always these swing states like Ohio and
it always
Florida.
comes down to like 6 states.
Yeah, it always comes down to those like some states like in the north and the southeastern coast. And
I agree with that. And
I think that's a problem. Like to be honest,
I didn't think the Electoral College was a problem until this election, and for it not to be a problem until you get a result you don't like, it's not really a problem.
Very good point.
it's like when somebody says like, "Oh, it's like democracy lost today." It's like, no, democracy always going to win regardless who wins, unless there actually was.
This is an exact
example
of democracy just happening. Democracy did not win. Democracy did not lose. Democracy just happened.
Yeah.
And
or rather, to be more accurate, a representational republic happened.
Yeah. This is the system since 1776. This is how it works.
1776. We'll
commence again. I've broken the conditioning.
I love his he has like some like
Alex Jones to
his advertising.
this.
Not as like he's advertising his own like supplements and stuff like this. Like you need to be an alpha male. Take these Alex Jones alpha male pills or something like that.
Super male vitality.
There we go. That's what it's called.
My weight loss accelerated. My muscle mass increased.
Tenfold.
And you look exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
You just look red.
Yep.
So to sum up my explanation, there are obviously a lot of question marks, but people are upset for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is it worth looking into? Yeah, I guess so. I suppose that we do have to get to the core of the issue and find out to what degree there was collusion. I think it's fair to say at this point that there was some degree of maybe not collusion, but influence. Yes,
that's what I was going to say. Influence.
Major powers influence other countries' elections all the time. It's something that the States has been doing for
look
how
at
long?
Guam, 1950. Look at
And to think
Chile,
that another major
yeah.
power would have influenced the United States election is not unthinkable. Do I think that Trump would have still won had it not been for Russia? Had Russia even just not even existed? Yeah, of course. Look at Hillary Clinton. I'm sorry, but what a terrible candidate. I think that the Donald Trump Jr. issue is something worth looking into. I don't think it was a nefarious thing. I think it was a matter, and this is something Scaramucci said that I thought was great, a matter of him being inexperienced and naive to a degree.
the mooch.
Or like an example, like he's like, well, since he's not very well versed in politics until recently, just because like his father got elected,
Exactly.
right? So like when he's like reading about all this stuff about collusion stuff, it's like, you know what? Let me go to Russia or like just speak to Russia and be like, try to clear the air. And obviously people are gonna misinterpret that drastically. He's like, oh, there's more collusion now, or like, yeah, like
So
it's even more ridiculous. Like,
I did have a question relating to that to Donald Trump Jr. So he leaked his personal emails, correct?
He didn't leak them. He just tweeted
exposed them.
out.
He tweeted them out. So the
I
question
think
is
that's a very powerful form of accountability.
Yeah. Two questions in one. What did they contain, and was it the right choice to do? And let's make this answer quick because I have one last question regarding this.
I don't exactly know what they contain. I didn't actually read them, and it didn't clear any air whatsoever because and this is what I was getting at in my intro. Because of this, sort of big question mark as to WTF happened with Russia, nobody thinks anything is credible anymore.
Yeah.
The emails could have been Photoshopped. Well, are they all the emails? What do we really know? And, I like the idea of a nonpartisan commission, an outside, a third party that looks into this. Because, for the sake of democracy, as we all value democracy, for the sake of democracy, you need to figure out, what can happen with Russian powers in an election. And I just think that, I still think Donald Trump would have won. There's new reports now that at a hackathon conference, the members were able to hack the electoral machines in like 5 minutes or something.
Wow.
So, you never know. And that's the thing.
Oh, the convention they had?
Yeah.
But like from what I saw about that convention, they could hack everything so they could see the voter data.
Yeah.
I think that's scary. Like, so
It's
scary,
really-
right?
it's really
But
scary.
I think I'm kind of slightly relieved that when they actually did the whole hacking thing, they were not able to actually hack the actual vote.
Mm-hmm.
So they could not change, an example, a Trump vote to a Clinton vote.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
I'm happy with that, but the technology is always expanding. I think it's pretty amazing that people can do that with the technology and stuff like that with a laptop. Like what we use, people can do destroy like a whole system and stuff like that. But
And if anybody thinks that Donald Trump is the pioneer in colluding with foreign powers, you are wrong.
Oh, yeah.
You are absolutely 110% wrong. There is no election in the history of such global powers that has been left alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Such key points, such key major, and that doesn't make it right. But to call Donald Trump like a fascist, a tyrant, a meddler of democracy won. The system is the way that it is. You go into the game knowing the rules. This is the outcome.
So my last question, because originally you mentioned before we moved a little further, you mentioned that the election's over, let's get over it. The question is, will the media ever stop talking about the collusion allegations?
Absolutely not, because Trump will never stop talking about it. Trump tweets out about the election over and over again, and he does it with reason, because the media eats it up. They eat it up like candy.
So if he stops, will the media stop?
I think eventually they will.
Yeah, hopefully the Clinton
think
News Network cuts it out. So
The
finally,
dust
but-
will settle and things will stop being crazy eventually, and maybe something, the odd thing will come up, sure,
Yeah.
because I think the media will always be looking for something.
Yeah.
But I think the dust will settle and we'll stop seeing this nonsense eventually. Now, I suppose it's not fair of me to call it nonsense. That's maybe a mischaracterization of the issue, but I do think that it needs to stop being such a huge, crazy issue, like as if the Russians just completely changed everyone's vote to Donald Trump. Now, we mentioned Scaramucci briefly, and I'd just like to express my
More like Scary Mucci,
extreme
but
disappointment that Scaramucci has left the administration, because I think
he could
he
would
was
have done
put-
a lot better job.
he was put in the job that he was born to do.
Yeah.
The Mooch was destined to be the White House communications chair.
Yeah.
And now we got Sarah Huckabee as the press secretary. What's going on there?
I think
Like-
I like her. I think she's pretty. She's pretty.
She's way
powerful.
too smug. She bothers
She's
me.
too smug.
She's way too smug.
She reminds me of what I thought of Republicans when I was a child. Just being like
Rude,
a scornful.
I
Braylene
Yeah.
named something.
Yeah, just
see. Like I think she is smug, but she stands up
Yeah.
to the media, and that's
Sure.
what I like about her.
Right.
Even
Yeah.
if it was
It's very admirable,
even if it was the other way around, right? If she was like a Democrat standing up to Republican media, like to have that within you and to just be able to tell them off.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important quality to have. I mean, I guess I could sound biased, but I just think that's just something personally I like in a person.
Right.
You know,
Oh, totally.
like all three of you guys will stand up for your views, and you know, you're not smug, but you'll stand up for your
I can
views,
be
and that's what I
smug.
care about.
We can all be smug at
Yeah,
times.
no, that's
I
totally
got some
fair.
heads.
No, but like I actually liked the Mooch. He made me laugh. I liked him as a comedic character because he like they roasted him on Twitter, and if anybody wants to read all the jokes that they made of him, it's hilarious. They were like, they look like the guy that wouldn't stop talking to Leonardo DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street, so they had to kick him off broadcast. And he just looks like this, you know, greasy New York, you know, Bronx sort of guy.
Yeah.
And I think he's very, you know, media fit. Like he's
exactly.
He looks.
Hot take, actually. Did you guys know that Scaramucci's wife filed for divorce?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
When?
crazy.
yeah. There's
And
whole other allegations
then-
that he's gay.
Gave birth to his child like immediately before or after the divorce.
Yeah.
Which is
That's
so sad. And
crazy.
apparently he responded to the birth of his child with a curt text message to his wife or ex-wife,
It's like,
whichever,
"Nice."
saying congratulations.
Wow.
That's well,
That's
kid.
an allegation. I want to make it clear that I don't know that's the fact, but
Yeah.
that's what people have been saying.
Yeah, it's an allegation that he's gay as well. He
Yeah.
follows a gay porn star on Twitter. That's true from what
Well,
I've seen.
I follow Gratata on Twitter, and he's a gay porn
he is a
star.
gay
Do you remember that guy?
Brian-
I sent some shots at
That's
your
Yeah,
feed.
Gratata.
Yeah.
Sweat.
Oh, what's his name?
It's,
Brian something.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever.
Google Gratata. You know that guy had a yacht called the Yatata.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think he's in such a financially secure situation these days that he can afford.
His name
to-
was Brian De Silva.
Brian
Ah,
De Silva.
yes.
Yeah.
It's a very Portuguese
Well,
name.
okay, we're gonna go off a little tangent, but Gratata guy says he hooked up with the Cash Me Outside girl or something.
Oh my
Nice.
god, that girl's 13.
Nice.
14.
Oh my goodness, that's enough looking at Google for today.
But-
you know?
Oh man. Brian De Silva. Gratata. Anyway, Scaramucci, I'm very disappointed that he's gone. I think he was in the job he was born for, and you know, John Oliver, as much as I don't like John Oliver, he's often very funny. He said that
turn it a bit more. Oh, I can't see it. Okay, there we go.
Better.
Yeah.
Scaramucci. There you go, guys.
Wait. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's done.
he said that Anthony Scaramucci is if a tanning bed took the form of a human, and I think that that's actually just very accurate. And as much as I like the mooch, I think it's totally fair.
We hardly knew ye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that English?
Yeah, we hardly knew ye.
Oh, we hardly
yeah.
knew you.
We hardly knew ye.
I was like,
Sorry.
I was like, oh my god.
Side note: John Oliver is going to be Zazu in the new Lion King remake, which I think is absolutely perfect.
I back it.
That's
absolutely
cool. Okay,
perfect.
I see this stuff, and maybe I'm just reading too much conservative media. But is Simba actually going to be gay in the new Lion King?
I don't think so. That's
What?
I read that somewhere. It
Why
didn't
gotta
look like a
make
very
animals
credible
gay,
source.
like-
It didn't look like a very credible source.
Whatever.
There's no problem if he's gay. I
mean, there's 2 gay penguins at the Toronto Zoo.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
but like,
I
let them
haven't
do their
seen
thing,
him.
but like, don't make it as like, oh, Disney's like, where is it? We know like our founder was a terrible person, but
Yeah.
like, let's try and be positive.
A terrible person's unfair. Like, did he
It's a sign
have
of the times.
Some
Did he
things.
possibly have an issue with Jews? Possibly, but
Nachas.
Everything's
I mean,
forgiven because
that's not very nice of him. It's not very nice of him.
But you know
I
what?
don't agree with
so
it.
Did, so
but
did
it's not-
everybody in the 40s.
Yeah. Like,
Honestly.
does that make him a terrible person in the 40s?
No.
I don't know.
No.
Maybe not a great guy.
Queen Elizabeth was found doing the Sieg Heil as a child.
And Pope Benedict XVI, who I love, was a member of the Hitler Youth. But I suppose that was a forced thing.
Yeah, he was in Poland at the time, was he not?
I think that was a forced thing.
I mean, it all depends on context. Like,
Yeah.
right?
and also
So
the
that's
Hitler
why-
Youth was like just a Boy Scouts thing, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now that we've somehow, of course, touched on Hitler, as we always
Godwin's
do,
Law. Godwin's Law.
let's move on to our last topic. Let me just change it up. There we go. The transgender military ban. It's the most current and most heated topic right now from what I've gathered on the news, my news feed, and everything. Again, we got to start with what happened. Marshall, you take this one. What happened? What's this whole situation?
So now I don't know the exact date, but now I want to say about a week ago or
About a
possibly
week
less,
ago.
Donald Trump tweeted out
I
from his
remember
personal
2014.
Twitter account that the United States military will be banning transgender people from military service, and it was met with all sorts of responses:
Backlash.
positive, negative, a bit of both, depending on who.
Yeah, depending on who you
A
ask.
lot of people just absolutely freaking out. A lot of people very, very happy about it. And, I think there's a lot to touch on when it comes to this issue. I'll say right now, I back it. As soon as it came out, I thought
hot take,
this
hot
was
take.
a silly way to announce it. Doing it over Twitter, and I suppose that's my biggest issue with Donald Trump is his Twitter. Doing it over Twitter was a bad move. I would have liked to see maybe not even Trump announcing it, maybe Mad Dog Mattis.
Apparently,
possibly.
it like went over the heads of a bunch of generals. Like they didn't even know
Yeah, the
about it,
Pentagon
which is
didn't know about
which
it.
is ridiculous. Like
They
if you're
just
gonna,
blindsided them completely.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly, which I
Bad
think
Trump.
was maybe bad Trump, yeah. Good Trump, bad Trump. Maybe we got a bit of both. I wish we had the song Good Trump, Bad Trump so we could sample that right now, but
It's okay.
Daniel, you're up.
no, don't put it on. And, I think that there's a lot of double standards when it comes to this from people criticizing it because, for example, I can't serve in the U.S. military. I mean, despite not being a citizen, let's assume I was. I have an ADHD diagnosis, so
Yeah,
I
you
can't
can't
serve. I think that I might be just as fit as a lot of people who are able to serve. I'm in good shape. I go to the gym with Adam. He can attest to that.
Marshall does bench.
And
He benches.
the fact that I have ADHD and I don't rely on medication currently, but maybe I could, is a liability. And there's no room for liabilities in the greatest military in the world. And that's all it is. When you've got a group of people who are 7 times more likely than the average person to attempt suicide, who are often reliant on hormone injections, and who, if do not receive their hormone injections, can go into a state where they are not
So they get-
as fit for combat. I'm not saying that they're automatically going to change genders as soon as they stop
like-
taking their
Or
hormones,
like
but
a Pokemon or
they
something
may
like that.
be
Like,
they may be reduced to a state where they are not fit for combat. Whether it's simply an extreme case of fatigue because they didn't get their testosterone, or an extreme testosterone spike because they didn't take their estrogen,
Yeah.
or what have you. It's a liability, and there's no room for liabilities. I mean, obviously there's always going to be liabilities, but you have to reduce liabilities as much as possible. It's not about hating transgender people or having an issue with the LGBTQ2IAAP community.
I'm so glad you remember that.
It's about having no room for liability. That's all.
The thing is,
I think. Sorry.
Sorry,
Go-
just
go
a lot
ahead.
of people have called it very regressive in the sense that, like, well, we just got, gay people accepted into the military. Why are we stopping at trans? Like, why is this such an issue?
But like, I know like, we group. Here's the problem with all this stuff. We group all of those people together.
I was just about to say
Identity
that.
That's
politics.
the problem. You can't group somebody who's a transgendered person and someone who's a non-binary, non-gender conforming, asexual demigod. They're not the same person. They're not the same person. Or like, you can't compare someone who's just a very normal, like, thank God it's accepted in our society now. It's just someone who's gay. Like, they're not the same person as like.
Yeah, and it really
As someone who's what am I saying? Just queer, like no, it's not the same thing.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. This is the problem for me with all of this. First of all, I disagree with the transgender military ban. I'll say that right off the bat, and I'll tell you why I disagree with it, and then I'll go into why I think other people should also disagree with it. But if anybody wants to say anything,
Just go ahead, man. Go.
speak now or hold your peace for the next 10 minutes. So basically, I disagree with the military ban because I've always looked at the idea to enroll yourself in the U.S. military as a patriotic move. Whether you believe in freedom, democracy, freedom, and freedom, or whether you believe in the sort of regiment of the military, wake up at a certain time, eat at a certain time, the boot camp regiment of the aspect of the military. I have an immense amount of respect for people in the military. I didn't used to. I always thought they were, slaves to the capitalist system, traitors to their own people.
Capitalist dog.
Which I regret, but I didn't used to think so. And I think that no matter what liabilities you might have, I think it is your right to want to serve your country.
I think it's your right to want to, but I don't think it's a right to serve. It's a privilege.
That's the thing for me because if you want to go into suicide rates, Native Americans, Indigenous Americans have a much higher suicide rate. Ex-cons have a much higher suicide rate. Children
this
of
isn't a problem that's only affected towards the transgender
children
community.
of divorced homes have a higher suicide rate. People that are in long distance relationships have a higher suicide rate. Gay people have a higher suicide rate.
Anybody who uses some sort
Queer
of
people,
substance abuse to
people that have opioid addictions have higher suicide rate. Even if you're taking a legal opioid like Vicodin, you have a higher suicide rate. People that have
The Xannies,
bipolarism in your family, you might not necessarily be diagnosed with bipolarism, but there is a higher chance to have suicide. And finally, military folk have a higher suicide rate. If you serve in the military, you're bound. As part of the statistic, you have a higher suicide rate. This was never about transgender rights. This is about Trump's, fake plea during the election that he is the friend of the LGBT people. He will fight for them. Hillary Clinton has such hate in her heart, blah, blah, blah. And to single them out of the military and to see all these, right-wing Americans, majority, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of right-wing Americans go like, good riddance, those the freak show or the circus or whatever name they choose that day shouldn't be able to serve in the military. I disagree with because it's a fake outrage.
And so sorry, did you have something?
No, that was it.
Yeah, and so I totally agree with the sense that there are numerous other types of people that would have these, high suicide rate, right? And so I do think that it's a very bad thing that he singled them out. The thing is, though, what you mentioned is if they want to serve in the military, they should be. The question is at what cost? Because if and this doesn't just go for transgender people, but if you're serving in the military and you do have some psychological, emotional, physical issues, at what cost are you costing the military? Because you could be harming other soldiers, you could be harming, civilians based on you not being ready. So I personally don't think that the transgender community should have been banned from the military, no matter the fact that they do have increased suicide rates, like you mentioned, Marshall. I think that everybody should be subjected to a very grueling test.
Yeah, and
it's just a standard for everybody.
And this is how you get rid of identity politics. You say like, people apply, you see all their characteristics, transgender or, bipolar or whatever, but you just put them through the test.
And for me, from what I understand, the military doesn't have any affirmative action or any, minority quotas of any kind. You have to pass a test to get into the military.
Yeah.
Right.
And these trans folks passed that test. The 15,000 or 50,000, 15 or 50?
15.
15.
The 15,000.
Is that number
I think
even?
I don't actually. I think it.
No one
So I
even
saw
sure if
something
the
the other day
number's
about how that
accurate,
number
right?
wasn't actually correct.
Right.
I could be wrong, but here, Google
the
that.
X
Hugo.
number of trans folk
We'll
that
just say the
serve in the
reported number.
Mhm.
The reported number of trans folk that serve in the military pass these tests and are proud to serve their country. And for Donald Trump to walk in, breeze over everybody's head and be like, no, you can't serve, is very un-American in a way, because the Americans pride their military. My mom went to a Leonard Skinner concert in Tennessee, and for those of you who don't know, Leonard Skinner is the creator of Sweet Home Alabama, and they're a very proud American band. And my mom told me about every 12 minutes or so they paused to give a round of applause to the troops and to thank the troops and to be, there for the troops. And that's what a lot of the American Foundation is. It's all about the troops. But what about the troops? What about the troops? You're telling these troops that they can't serve anymore after passing these tests, after being in combat. And for me, I haven't seen any reports, and I've seen a few Twitter threads, I've seen a few anecdotes, but it's not like they have been a liability, from what I understand. And I'm not saying I have the word of God, prove me wrong, if anybody has any counter evidence, but these people pass these tests.
I'm just doing some fact checking right now. From what I've seen, I was looking something before from the CNN, and we all know that there's a big fiasco there.
The Clinton News Network.
Yeah, but we're not gonna. Do they still qualify as credible news?
Yeah, sure.
I think they're pretty credible.
So, from what I saw here, Bloomberg News, different media source, obviously, but 15,500 trans people are currently serving in the U.S. from a 2014 study.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, hold on, let me just see that again. 8,800 people are in active duty, while another 6,700 are either in the National Guard or the U.S. Army Reserve. There you go.
So
The more you know.
Yeah.
So then a question. I just want I want the viewers to be able to answer as well. So guys, comment, because we're gonna read them on air. This decision. How has the trans community dealt with it? I know we mentioned some negative reviews, some positive reviews. I've read some reviews where it's really insulted some trans people who have served in the military and then transitioned. So what, it's a very split decision though, but how do you deal with it? Like, how have they dealt with it?
I think posing a question on the opinion of the transgender community is something that relies on identity politics, and I think it's an issue because I've seen transgender people coming out and saying this is great. I've seen transgender people saying this is a complete affront to our rights as Americans. I've seen former transgender people saying this is awful. Former transgender people saying this is fantastic. And I mean, transgender people are not a monolith, and when it comes down to it, maybe this sounds insensitive, but why is being transgender an identity any more than being depressed or having bipolar disorder as an identity? We don't let people or the U.S. rather doesn't let people with depression or with bipolar disorder into the military, and that's not an issue because they realize that they are simply doing risk reduction. This is just more risk reduction. I don't think it's like saying, black people can't join the military or Native people can't join the military. It's
on
just
the basis of their skin color, because that's something that's completely
exactly because of course you look
standards.
at people with depression. Not all of them are going to cause an issue. Not all of them are going to pose a problem to their fellow soldiers or to themselves.
Yeah.
But the risk of them doing so, based on the nature of what is going on in their psyche and in their mind, is high enough that measures have to be taken to prevent something like that from happening. Is every transgender person a liability? Of course not. Are most of them a liability? Probably not. Maybe, but probably not. But certainly some of them are, especially when you look at suicide rates, especially when you look at reliance on hormones, and even you look at diabetic people. Diabetic people are generally, if it's type 1 diabetes, are generally living normal, healthy lives. but they have a reliance on insulin injections and on sugar pills,
Right.
and so they can't serve in the U.S. military. You cannot be diabetic and serve in the U.S.
Like an
military.
example, like there's like so many different types of medical conditions or mental conditions or physical conditions and stuff. Like, example, Adam, like I don't think you can serve because of
I can't serve.
Yeah, you-
I'm flat-footed. And
Yeah, I'm flat-footed as well.
I'm flat-footed, and I have reduced motion in my right leg. I can't serve in the military.
I'm very hopeful that I can. Like maybe something with the reserves, something like that.
Yeah.
But like an example for me personally, my negative 0.2 eye prescription, like my diagnosis and stuff like that, bans me from ever gonna be a Canadian pilot because you need 20/20 vision to do that.
Well, that makes
Is
sense,
like,
though.
Like an example, like it would be completely discriminatory if a minority would not be allowed and they did have 20/20 vision to be a pilot. But if anybody, regardless of their race, religion, even if they were transgendered or not, if they didn't have perfect vision, if that's the requirement there, I wouldn't want them to be a pilot.
And I mean, I have trouble distinguishing between shades of green. It's not an issue. It's an issue when I'm playing FIFA, but that's really the only time it's a problem.
Thank you for telling me that. I'm only going to pick green jersey now.
And like our friend Humphrey, he says right now, he just commented, the military was never an equal employer. As you apply for the U.S. military, on the application, right at the bottom, it says serving in the U.S. military is a privilege, not a right. They have the right to refuse you for anything that they want.
And that's what makes a military prosper. All I'm saying is that the trans folk in the military right now passed all these tests, passed all the vetting, passed everything, and you are removing them from the military. It's wrong, and it's an assault an assault on trans folk because it's specifically on them. You're not removing, those that got overlooked and are suicidal and have evidence of being suicidal. This isn't a military vetting.
I agree.
This isn't a vetting.
I think that they should do a vetting. However, I don't think that the currently serving trans people should be removed. I think that they should be allowed to stay. And what I've heard is that they will not be removed.
Yeah, the Pentagon came out and they were like, we don't know exactly the parameters of this. We're going to continue status quo as it is, peace out kind of thing. And I'm not for Donald Trump to come out, circumvent the entire system for this, and on a population of the United States, though small in number, have been routinely battled to have very simple rights as though a cis American would have. Going to the bathroom, for one, has been an extreme battle for the transgender population in America.
Right.
And for, the U.S. to come out and be like, no, now you can't serve in the military, it was never about the bathrooms. It is about American discomfort with the transgender
People in bathrooms.
people,
Yeah.
not in bathrooms, just living.
Right.
For me, I think there is a general discomfort with transgender Americans, by cis Americans, and I think that this is just an example for Donald Trump to fearmonger and just use another.
Because we already know he's a Nazi. So.
Yeah, no, but
No, for sure. There's definitely some disdain. There's definitely some disdain and Now I wouldn't say hate towards the transgender, but maybe some preconceived notions about the transgender
which leads to
community.
hate in all the time.
Which can for sure
And
that's trickle down economics, trickle down it will trickle down to his voters and stuff like that. It's if Trump doesn't or doesn't want transgender people serving in the military, maybe I should have a similar approach.
Yeah, maybe. Why should they serve in my business? Why should I
serve them in my business?
Why should they serve in my Burger King or whatever? But
I feel like we should be able to criticize transgender people though, without being painted as transphobes.
Yeah, the thing is, there is,
the same way that we can criticize Islam without being labeled as Islamophobic.
But being transgender is not a religion.
I know. What
But
I'm
it's
saying
just
is
in general,
I think it has become a movement.
Nowadays you can't.
The body positivity
It's very
movement
politicized. It's
is
very
the only movement without any movement. There you go.
I guess. I mean, they have to be political because they're continually being fought. There is no you cannot be apolitical and be transgender at the same time.
Right.
Because it's your community that's constantly being told where you can and cannot pee, where you can and cannot live, where you can and cannot serve, where you can and cannot
before,
work.
what was it, Bill C-16, right? The people were able, the landowners were able to kick someone out of their home.
Yeah, I did a whole housing discrimination essay for my final essay in high school, and the business owners do have a right to refuse you to live because you are transgender, which I disagree with. But at the same time, if I believe in, if people, I don't believe in it, but if people believe in like a free market and they believe in private business retaining full jurisdiction and the government not being able to intervene, then they should be allowed.
So is it?
So we have some more comments from Humphrey relating to the transgender military ban. Thank you for your comments, Humphrey. Following his comments saying the military was never an equal employer, he says, if you have bad credit, you can't serve. Bad teeth, forget it. Short, hell fuck no. Did any of you see Lady Gaga's tweet about how suicidal they are? She tried to defend them, but unfortunately proved his point. LOL. And I didn't see Lady Gaga's tweet, but...
Neither did I.
She's like, don't you know that, like... transgender people are like 4 times more likely to commit suicide.
If people are committing suicide,
evidence, then like you don't want them in the military.
If people are committing suicide over not being able to serve in the military, that says something to me that there's another issue, that not being able to serve in the military was not what is causing these suicides. And suicide is not something that I want to talk about lightly, but it has become such a epidemic in ways that it is something that you can't help but talk about as just another suicide.
Sometimes it's been like glorified and stuff like that, or and even not necessarily just suicide, but like things that lead to suicide and stuff like that, like self-harm and stuff like that. Like I've seen like where people take pictures of like where they're like right there, like, and they just do that kind of stuff, and I'm like, there is something wrong with you, but like we can help you, and we can but there's something wrong with everybody. No one's ever going to be like
coming back to the psychology of language of politics,
right?
Something being wrong with you needs to stop being an insult or a dehumanization or a delegitimization. Some people have things wrong with them. Yeah. And that is okay. It doesn't make you any less of a person. Yeah. It doesn't make you a bad person. Yeah. It's not your fault.
We should want to be able to
But
fix
you should
these
be
problems.
able to accept that something is wrong. When it comes to transgenders, I think that we should be able to say
but
something is wrong with them. It's not that they're bad for it. I'm not insulting them. It's like, I've used this example months ago with myself. I was born with my feet backwards. Something was wrong with me. It's not making me a bad person. I'm not less of a human. But something is wrong. The thing is,
societally, we've been like raised, like our, like
this is right and this is wrong.
Right. This is right. This is wrong. And if this is, wrong, then you have a right to say something. And it starts at childhood, and we have to stop that. But like, a lot of differences. Like if you'll see somebody like who commits a murder, you'll be like, that's wrong. There's something wrong with them. You can't just necessarily say, oh, well, there's something wrong with them, accept it. So the problem is it's very subjective and there has to be a line, but where do you draw the line?
See, okay, I agree with Marshall. There has been this sensitivity that has been created, and I was born into that sensitivity. I went to school out of my area. So when you go out to school out of area in a public school system...
how far of your area?
20 minutes outside my area by drive. Right. But it just wasn't my local school.
Right.
So when you apply to a school outside of your area, you have to go through an interview process.
Long process,
yeah. So this school was good for me because it was one floor, it didn't have stairs. For those who don't know, I have mild cerebral palsy in my right foot. I'm completely okay with it. I've accepted it as who I am. And the school started drooling over me. They were like, look, we're so accepting. We can have him in our school. They wanted to bring in news broadcasters, Owen Public School being this, moving forward, this progressive school. My mom was like, to hell with you. This is my kid. My kid walks a little funny, whatever. So it is one thing to be like, hey, I walk a little weird. I need a little bit more time to, move on a bus. When I put in my ticket, I need a little bit more time to sit down. I'm a little bit of a slower walker, blah, 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 X, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But it's another thing to be like, hey, listen, you fucking cripple or something.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a difference. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be I disagree with if someone identifies or is transgender or queer in any way. There is nothing wrong with them per se. But if someone goes like, hey, you freak, or hey, whatever, that's where I draw the line. There's a difference between a criticism and an outright slur.
Yeah.
And I for me, this outrage on the military, you see, and this is another criticism that I have of the left. And these liberals that they crap on the military right and left. You're a murderer of children. You're whatever. And then as soon as transgenders can't serve in the military, they're like, it's un-American.
Yeah, totally.
Liberals are the last people to be like, this is American, because they don't believe in the idea of nationalism as much as the Republican Party does, and that's an assumption, that's a generalization to make, but that's also what I see.
Can you make a 10-second recap of what you said?
Difference between a slur and a criticism. If someone calls me a cripple versus someone calls me disabled.
I don't think it's even a criticism. I think it's a categorization. It's neutral.
For example.
It's like saying like you have cerebral palsy, you have something wrong with you. Something is not all right.
Comparing me to, let's say, Elliot, for example, in terms of body composition, there is something wrong with me.
That's what I mean.
Right.
But it doesn't make you a bad person or any less.
It doesn't make me any less of a person or a bad person,
and you don't deserve poor treatment.
Yeah, and I don't. Thank you, Marshall. So kind.
An example, like, yes, you do have cerebral palsy and stuff like that, like with your foot, and it's very unfortunate stuff like that. But that happens to people, right?
Yeah.
So, an example, like where I work, like, I'm not gonna, I can't.
Don't disclose.
I can't disclose too much about it, but. What I will want, I think, which should be something that they would actually want me to talk about was like for our training, we had our spokesperson, and this person, this lady, I'm pretty sure she was born with, she was a thalidomide baby, I believe.
Which is
thalidomide's like a drug that they used like back in the day or something.
It's a pregnancy drug, or it's a
right?
drug they give you for delivering children.
Oh, like epidural?
It's like an epidural,
Similar to an epidural,
I believe, or maybe it was like a natal nutrient or something like that.
Okay, and what results?
So actually
missing arms and stuff a lot of the time.
Oh, okay.
Thalidomide is used mainly as a treatment for certain cancers and a complication of leprosy. Now, so but before it was used for pharmaceutical researchers who market it as a mild sleeping pill, safe even for pregnant women. However, it caused thousands of babies worldwide to be born with malformed limbs. The damage was revealed in 1962.
Okay.
So this lady, I'm pretty sure she had, when her mother was pregnant, she maybe had some thalidomide or something like that.
Yeah.
Point being, so like if you were to look at her arm, think basically like my finger, right? But it was like my arm basically, and so it was like I don't have, I'm not teased or anywhere. I am going to the gym, but I gotta keep going back with you too. Actually.
You look good.
Yeah,
I'll come too, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Point being is, it was ridiculously thin, and it was like just like maybe like a stump like this, and I was like, so it was literally like all the way here.
Okay.
And her other one, she barely had like a small stump like this.
Okay.
And she used something as a clicker.
Yeah.
This is actually so inspirational. She's won multiple regattas in San Diego and Los Angeles against fully abled competitors.
I'm sorry, what's a regatta?
Regatta is like canoeing or sailing competition.
Oh, wow.
So like, and they use all their arms to like hold the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So she's won multiple regattas. She's skied like crazy hills like in Switzerland and something like that. And I think her next venture of things that people say like, you can't do this, and now she's like, I'm gonna prove them wrong.
Yeah.
Now she wants to do rock climbing. Yeah. But like, without like any suspension or something like that, full like just doing.
Oh,
and so
But see, like, she has a disability. She doesn't care though.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want to do.
Depending on the person you are, it can either motivate you or make you upset, right?
Break you.
Yeah, make you or break you. Like
exactly.
you can either, if people insult you, you'll either, say you can't do this. You'll just like, well, I can't do this. Unlike this person that you just mentioned, it's like, well, I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'll prove you wrong.
Like it used to, like my leg used to break me for a long time. I hated the way I looked. I hated the way I walked. I hated everything about me.
He said, "Look, I met you on the show, and I'm like, after like with the first we have like you're walking like not normal.
Yeah,
like, it's true, right?
No,
but like, I'm not trying to be mean or anything.
No,
but I'm like, I saw that, and I'm like, instead of me like make my own assumptions, I'll be like, let me just ask like, what happened? Like, are you good?
And I'm comfortable talking about it.
And that's very important that someone's being able to comfortably talk about that kind of stuff.
And that took a lot for me to be able to do. And there are a lot of people who have what I have and 10 times worse and 100 times worse that aren't comfortable talking about it.
They would need some sort of
so if you were to ask another person, hey, what happened to you, they could start hating you. They could start crying. It's very person to person. And I think that's what Marshall was also getting at, that the transgender military band should be person to person, because it is not all that transgender folk in the military are liabilities, and there could be some, but there also could be some for other populations, which is why I disagree with this ban. Because if you're going to ban the transgender folk, ban everybody else you think you have a problem with. I'm not ignorant to the fact that you need, able-bodied, whatever that may be, in the military to have a prosperous military. That's ignorant for me to be like, no, you need everybody A to Z, with every walk of life, with every issue they have. No, that's not true. In the military, it's different. It is not inclusive.
You need the best people in order to...
You need the best of the best and the brightest.
Because everyone functions as one giant unit.
Yeah.
And if, it's... What's the thing? If one link in the chain or something like that?
Alone we sink, together we sail.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Exactly. So, if one person fails, it's all going to start crumbling
down.
Yeah,
the domino effect.
The domino effect, exactly.
Totally. And I didn't think that it should be person to person. I do support a blanket ban only because we do have a blanket ban on other. And I mean, I'm sorry, this is a very controversial thing, and I just said I'm sorry, but I'm really not sorry. Being transgender is a mental illness, or at least a symptom of a mental illness, and we do not take people who with depression person to person. We do not take people with bipolar disorder person to person. And I would say that these are equally debilitating things. Maybe being transgender or whatever happens to lead to being transgender is more debilitating than having depression or bipolar disorder.
And that's why this topic is so controversial, is because
you technically did single somebody out.
No, it goes farther than just banning any group, any marginalized group from the military. It goes more further into the actual discussion and recognition of trans people, because people, not saying actually. It is kind of right now a left and right issue, but it's also a personal issue as well. Everyone has their own opinion in terms of transgender people. So there's people that will think that transgender people do have mental illness, and Marshall clearly explained that. There are people like myself who I'm not very I wouldn't say I'm fond of them, not or anything like that, but I've made my peace. I don't have any problem with that stuff. But me personally, what I would do if I do see any transgender people, it will be I wouldn't say I wouldn't get triggered or anything like that, but it would be I would just have a lot of questions more, because I actually want to learn more about this community. And
the problem is nowadays asking questions is insulting.
I was just about to say that, and I've mentioned this on the show before. The time that we had pro-life demonstrators on campus, and we had pro-life counter demonstrators, and I went and approached one of the pro-choice demonstrators, and I asked him, so there are no abortion laws in Canada. What would you like to see happen? What is your goal here? And he said, you asking my opinion on social issues is clearly coming from a very privileged position. And I think that you have a smartphone with Google on it, and I'm not putting the emotional labor in to explain why I'm here to you. I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to Google? Why is this guy on my campus with a sign? And I see this so much. I see this all over the Ryerson Facebook group. Google it. I'm not putting in the emotional labor. What the hell do you want me to Google?
And it's interesting because this is not the first time I heard you say this. I was literally, while I was setting up today, no, just the privilege thing. I don't want to explain myself, whatever. I was literally listening to another episode while I was setting up, and you said those exact same words. So it's not a one-time issue.
It's stuck with me.
Ben Shapiro will be like, facts don't care about your feelings, but a lot of lefties will be like, Google isn't free.
Yeah.
That's a very common phrase, and at times it's right to say, but if you want to create open dialogue, and that is my...
So we're having an open dialogue
this
right
is
now.
my belief.
Adam and I share a similar belief now in terms of this transgender ban, that maybe it shouldn't happen. I think what I would do maybe is just put all of these soldiers, if they've already passed their standard, I'm like, that's fine, right? But if any new people, as long as they hold them to the same standard, it could be justified not to ban them.
I don't know anything about the U.S. military whatsoever,
right?
And if a vetting process needs to be, harsher or increased, by all means. That's up to the military.
But see, we add a vetting process to immigration, and people lose their fucking minds.
Yeah. And now, Trump did just come out today with an announcement on the new immigration policy, which I liked.
Which is Canada's. No one realizes that. They were like, they have a point system now. Hello?
That's exactly what my dad...
We have a point system!
Sorry, I yelled there. That's exactly what my dad used to get
That's
into
how my
Canada.
parents got into this
country. You know how the
country.
system works? works is like, do you know any of the official languages? If you
Sorry,
know
I don't know
English,
if that blew the mic or
yeah.
anything.
If you know English, it's like 3 or 4 points. If you know French, that's even better.
It's like 10
If you
points.
know both, there you go.
Which is really funny. I don't know if you guys heard about the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario MPP rather being kicked out of the caucus for saying that French speakers have a advantage in Canada. And
They do.
They do.
That's a
more
fact.
specifically in
Facts don't care
Ontario.
about your feelings.
And he was kicked out of the caucus, and now he has joined the Wild Rose Party, and the Wild Rose Party are my guys. I'm sorry to say this to any
Fascist.
Wild Rose supporters. Oh, I'm sorry, not Wild Rose. I'm so I'm a giddy goat.
Too much politics.
The Trillium Party, the Trillium Party of Ontario. And so the Trillium Party of Ontario now has their first seat in Ontario Parliament because
So they're finally
this guy crossed
That's
the floor.
why he was kicked out?
Yeah, because of a phone call that was overheard. Now, to be fair, I won't give this guy total credit. He had previous transgressions, but this being considered the straw that broke the camel's back, it should have been a non-issue.
It's just-
honestly.
Doesn't he believe in aliens or something?
Hell if I know.
But even on that fact alone, like I did a paper on this, the fact that if you know English and French, you have such an advantage over government jobs, over other jobs.
Exactly.
You have an advantage over earnings. Like it's just a fact.
Yeah, exactly.
Like when I was younger, my mom wanted me to teach. She's like, you should just get into French just because they need that. And
Yeah.
I'm like it's like what do you call it? It's a safe bet for sure because like we need that just because
Totally.
both of
Yeah.
our languages are English and French. Or like an example, like back to again what I was saying with my father and the demerit report system. Like I think from what he told me before, he was saying like because he knows English and both my mom and my dad, they studied at they call it La IGA, which is the Institute. So I'll translate it back. It was like El Instituto Guatemalteco Americano or something like that. So it's like the American Guatemalan Institute of like English or something like that. Or it was like an international institute. But they teach everyone English there, and
Yeah.
they teach them proper English, not this like
Spanglish.
stuff. Yeah, Spanglish stuff. Exactly. So they learn English properly.
Good movie.
And my dad also is how do you say it? He's a mechanic and stuff like that, Stu, right? So like during that time, like in the early '90s, like they need all of these people
course.
that have these certain like labor skills and stuff like that.
We
so it's
still
very
do.
important, and
We
we
still
still
do.
need them. So like example, like that's not like that shouldn't be a problem that the U.S. wants to do that, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
And now we have a comment from Brandon Cassidy, and it's not a question or
Brandon.
anything, but he says, "Keep on keeping on, keep taking on the crazy topics." Thanks so much, Brandon.
Thank you,
appreciate
Brandon.
your
Really
viewership.
appreciate
He's in my program. Thanks, Brandon.
I love doing this. I love being here. I love
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah,
this.
no, it's fantastic.
I may disagree with some issues that come up, but this is
Yeah.
I think this is the foundation of progress.
Absolutely.
Let me just get rid of the transgender topic. Now continue.
And I think that this is what we need as people. We need to be able to talk. We need to be able to ask questions, not in fear.
Yeah.
My parents got in on the point system. At the time, the point system, you needed 74 points accumulated to be given like a sort of earlier or sort of fast-tracked entry into Canada with all the security precautions, of course. Now I believe it's 67 points. I don't know why it is that way, but that's how it is. People criticize Trump sometimes just to criticize.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And
Oh, yeah.
I don't like him at all. Parts of me do regret picking him over Hillary during our discussions here, but
Thank you, appreciate that.
but there are times that I wonder what would it be like with Hillary, and then I sort of quiver in my being. But anyways,
They would be at war. Or the states would be at war with Russia.
yeah, just slightly. I have nothing left to say.
Well,
But can't we all just get along?
Yeah.
Honestly,
And
I love
we
the
did.
show just because, like an example, like we talk about the transgender stuff, and Marshall has his God-given right to say that he thinks that transgender is a mental illness.
Yeah.
Regardless if I agree with that or not.
I disagree, but
yeah, exactly.
go
but
ahead.
like, we're not like killing each other. We're not like throwing each other off like the studio and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Canada needs, what the United States
that's-
needs, and stuff like that. We need proper discourse.
that's honestly the reason that I started this show.
Exactly.
That I really wanted to I didn't want to spew one opinion. That's why when I started, I posted I need different views, guys. Looking for people, and thankfully you guys responded. Marshall brought you on.
Yeah.
Like it was just. I'm very glad that you guys
Really
are
happy
here.
We did.
So unfortunately, we do have to go. That was our summer special 2017. So thank you to everyone that tuned in and commented. your participation is key to being to us being able to do what we do, and that's civil free discourse. Again, I gotta thank Sean Haswell, Laurie Beckstead, Scott O'Sullivan, and Kevin Kordick for their help in making this show a reality. Without them, honestly, like, we wouldn't be here, and I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate all their help. Most importantly, though, I have to thank myself. No, I'm just kidding.
We have to thank you.
No.
Yeah, we do.
Thank you, Elliot.
Yeah, thank you for putting all this together,
No
for coming
problem.
in at 1 o'clock. He was here since 1 p.m.
Hard
Yeah.
worker.
He was here for 5 hours yesterday, and you're a really hard worker, and I admire that.
Thank you, man. I wanted to say thank you to you guys because Marshall, Adam, and Daniel for taking the time out of your busy summers to come here. Every week during the year, we do this show, we talk, and if it weren't for you guys, this show wouldn't have been anything, right? Because you have the differing views, we have the discussion, all thanks to you. So thank you so much. So I honestly couldn't have done it without you. We do have to go. We will hopefully be back in September for Season 3 of the Raben Report. We'll have a bunch of brand new topics. So from all of us, thank you and good night.
Thanks, everyone.